And there's a typeface design exhibition coming up at the NOLA Nacular Gallery. Spoiler alert, today's guest speaker is the head honcho of the NOLA Nacular Gallery. These things are all connected. So, Anthony, is there a due date by which you want people to submit their work in this call for submissions? Because I know it has to be somewhat close.
I just need the actual physical objects by the Thanksgiving weekend so I can put it up that week after.
Yeah. So keep it moving, fam. We got to get physical objects to Anthony like real quick. So why not start today? And then that gallery show, right? That'll open December 2nd. So right after Thanksgiving, and all of these pieces will be exhibited. So December 2nd from 6 to 10 p.m. at the gallery. All the cool kids from AIGA are going to be there. And so we want you to be there. And that's the news and the weather. I am super excited to introduce today's presenter, the one, the only Anthony DelRosario, who I think is an incredibly talented, multidisciplinary artist. I think the demonstration of excellence as well as compassion for community is really evident in all your work. If you haven't been to anthonyturducken on Instagram or the NOLA Nacular Gallery website yet, I think you need to do it today, because I think there's a ton of inspiration into all of the things that Anthony is, does, and loves. And without further ado, I'm going to let Anthony take it away.
Let me share my screen. You see my opening slide there? Okay, cool. So I'm going to take you on a recap of I guess a 15-year journey of documenting signs and architecture around town here in New Orleans after Katrina. So after Katrina, I moved to Austin, Texas for about 6 months, came back Mardi Gras Day, 4 a.m., did the Skeleton Crew, which is a group of folks that make paper mache skulls. And my good friend Chris Kirsch started the crew. And after Katrina, things weren't great around the city. Things weren't great personally. So started going around biking around the city together with Chris, taking pictures. He got me into biking around with him. He'd already started photographing toll boys and signs around town and other things, doing some local art, Mardi Gras Indians. So I joined, he got me to join Flickr in 2007. So this is kind of where I started. One of my first things was I found a bunch of dog poop signs. Started also documenting street art around town. These were some of the artists that were in New Orleans post-Katrina for 2 or 3 years, 4 years. Like Reader, You Go Girl. These are 2 that are still here in town. You might see a lot. Also doing other things. You Go Girl does something called Chokehold, this wrestling thing. It's also, this is everything after Katrina. Things were crazy and a lot of destruction and houses decaying around town. So I was documenting this decay that I saw. Many of the homes had cat's claw. A lot of the buildings were corner stores or just different commercial buildings. I'd also go into empty abandoned buildings, look for street art. I would do some myself. You next there, that's me. Some other things I was doing, painting, taking the base covers off of traffic lights, taking them home and painting them, putting them back. Doing a series of places that were no longer in business or just gone, called Gurn. Put up smash cans with their logos around town. Documenting outsider art around town. And finding very interesting signs in this post-Katrina landscape. So this is one of the first like hand-painted signs that I photographed and found. Eventually, expanded my route around city. So all this is mostly on bicycle. So I'd be biking around, taking photos. So I'd go to different neighborhoods. There's a couple of buildings that had Katrina lines and some interesting signs, po' boy signs, meat signs. So things like this were just what interested me documenting. Started seeing some other signs that had similar painting styles. And then eventually, after seeing this, the similar style and recognizing that this is probably one painter doing all these different signs, found this one at the Magnolia housing projects off Reds, and had the artist names, Lester Carey and John Cannon. And so me and Chris, we'd been documenting all these signs and just wondering about who painted all these, and finally we had a name to go on. So I started going around different places, asking like if they knew the sign painter, whatnot. And so soon after, found out the name of the artist that did all these signs, created a group on Flickr called SPALK, the Society to Preserve the Art of Lester Carey. So this is like early 2008, I think. Good Friday morning, no work. I get up early, hop on my bike, go biking around Central City, taking pictures. Happened to see this fella, Junior. He was sitting in front of one of Lester's signs that I'd seen and documented before, and asked him if he knew Lester or where he might be. And lo and behold, he tells me, yeah, Lester, he's over across the street at Keller Market. So I go inside, see somebody that looks what could be an artist. He actually has like some paint brushes near him. So I meet Lester that day, and I call up Chris. He comes and meets us in Central City, and Lester takes us on a little tour around the neighborhood, shows us different signs that he's painted in the area. And at this time, Lester, he was homeless, just living on the street, collecting aluminum cans, recycling those for money, and still painting signs. Here you can see his artist bag. It had his paints and his brushes. Still document other signs around town. And this is spring of 2008. I decided to apply for the Master's in Historic Preservation program, Historic Preservation Studies program at the architecture school here at Tulane, because one of my coworkers at the library had gone through the program. He told me about it, and since I was already interested in documenting buildings and signs, preserving things with photographs, I thought this would be a cool thing to do, and got the tuition waiver, so why not go ahead and do it. And also in that summer, I took a couple of classes, took my first preservation class, and also took a printmaking class. So one of the last projects I did was a screen printing of Lester and some of his signs in Central City. And then I think the second semester in the program, the preservation program, was this class, preservation technology, and I did a paper on corner businesses and Lester's signage around town. And while I was doing that paper, I was using some of my other photos that documented signs around town, put in the paper, showing other examples. And for some reason, I'd zoomed in on this photo and noticed that in the corner, in the very bottom right corner, here, it says by Pam. So they gave me another name to start looking for. I'd seen this style around town, so now I had another name to look for. So I would go around trying to find stores where her signs were, ask about if anybody had a contact number for her. Also noticed that her same style was on city signage. So I did some research and found some city documents, some city websites that had her name. So I got a last name for her. So her name is Pam Collins. So that I had a name to go around and look for her. Also, another style that I noticed all around town, not all around town, but in Central City and a few other places around town, was this kind of script style. And I saw this at the Ferret service station, what is now the Val's restaurant. The sign painter had been redoing the sign out front. I noticed that it had been changing, being repainted. So I went inside, asked whoever was working that day, like if they knew the sign painter. And he said, yeah, he lives over maybe on Willow or something. It's, I think he said Blue House, Dark House. So I biked around over there, found a house, blue, and yeah, there was a sign. There's some paintings that had the same script style on it. Didn't see him that day, but I kept going by there. So eventually I found the sign painter, whose name found out that day was Tom White. He also goes by Unc or Uncle. So I met him, friended him. So that was 2010. So at this point, I'm friends with Lester, checking in on him every couple of weeks or so, documenting stuff with Lester. So now I've met Tom, still looking around town for Pam. And I see a corner store on Magazine that has one of her signs. So I go in, ask the guy at the counter if he knows anything about the sign painter. And what do you know? He has her card. So I'm lucky enough to have a number now. So I call, set up a time and to meet Pam. We met at the Burger King on Canal Street in Broad. Talked to her. She was, very impressed. Like I documented all her signs and just. So here's a couple of examples of her signs that she did for the city, and this was like in the empty parking lot under the I-10 on Claiborne. And actually, the sign is now in my collection. This is Pam doing the Mardi Gras stands at Gallery Hall. Some other things I did. I did a then and now photography. I'd been doing some research in one of the digital collections at Tulane. That had a bunch of photos from the 50s and 60s that had signs in it. The Ralston Crawford collection. So I started seeing that some of the buildings I'd already done, like this blue lamp, I had almost the exact same photo of that building. And this church here, the St. Paul Missionary, that building was gone, but there was a new building, had a sign by Lester there. Also had a photo of the Magnolia supermarket from almost the exact same view from one of the photos in the Crawford collection. And I'm also, I think I also started thinking about the thesis I was going to write for the preservation program, which is going to be preserving signage around town. And I used the Crawford collection to look at different signs in different eras here in New Orleans. And while I was researching things, hand-painted signs all over the country, I found some different people who are doing sort of the same thing in Atlanta, in Cleveland, and I found somebody in Las Vegas. And they had started this thing called Vegas Vernacular, documenting signs, hand-painted signs around Las Vegas. So that kind of inspired me that, yeah, I should come up with a name to kind of wrap everything that I'm doing in. So I kind of not stole, but I took inspiration from the Vegas Vernacular, the VV, and I took a NOLA Nacular for New Orleans Vernacular. And these are a couple signs that I got Miss Pam to do a sign for me and Tom to do a sign for me. And the same later in the same year in 2013, did a collaboration with Defend New Orleans, did a couple of t-shirts based on Lester's signs. The fresh meat one was a pretty big hit. And Defend New Orleans would pass on money to me, and which I would pass on to Lester. And that year, there was a movie that came out called Sign Painters. This movie documented more on the sign painters around the country that had actual sign businesses, stores, storefronts, whatnot. But there was a screening at Tulane, and I invited all the sign painters, Pam, Tom, and Lester, took them to go to the screening with me. And then the next year, a friend of mine working for Gambit asked if I was interested in helping out with a cover story for the sign painters around town. So here's Lester and Tom and Pam doing photo shoots for the story that is going to be in Gambit. So in June of 2014, Lester was the cover star, the cover star of Gambit, and he was quite thrilled with that, quite amused. The other sign painters that I'd seen around town, that I've gotten this name, Charles Otis, from one of the places. Talked to him once, but never actually set up a time to meet him. So I haven't met him yet. This is another style I'd seen. This one, luckily, this person had signed, so saw his name. I think I called the number, but wasn't working. So unfortunately, that didn't pan out. This is another style I'd seen all around town. This one a lot out in the east, off Gentilly Road. There's a lot of car yards and junkyards. So this sign painter did a lot of things like body shops and car yards and trucks for garbage trucks, whatnot. And I think his name is James. I'd talked to somebody at one place, but another person that wasn't able to track down. Another style I'd seen around. I think this person is either moved after Katrina or passed away, because all these signs were pre-Katrina and nothing new since. Also in 2014, I did pick a tucha about what we do for fun, and that was documenting campaign and signs and biking around town, all that. Also that year, I started doing some lino cuts of corner stores. So another thing I wanted to preserve were the corner stores, and use my art to do that. So these are some early lino cuts. Two of these buildings are gone now. So the bottom two here, the bottom one's was in Central City. This middle one was in Mid City, and the one on top is still there, has been renovated, is in Holly Grove. Met a couple people from Atlanta that were doing a book about New Orleans called Cashew Company, and they wanted Tom to do a logo for them, and this is Tom painted that, and they had a release party where they used that, and Tom showed up for the party. And I wrote a short article about Tom for the issue, and also did some lino cuts. I had Tom do some hand-drawn embellishments for him. I made a little video out of those. And another way I help sign painters keep their livelihood going is finding them commission pieces through Facebook, through Instagram. People contact me, and I get them to, and have Pam or Tom or Lester make signs for them. And often when I was biking around, I'd just happen upon seeing Lester or Tom or one of the painters in action. So a couple of times I ran into them. And here, a few years later, finally got to meet John Cannon, which is one of the other names, which was the other name that was on the wall where I first saw Lester's name. So got to meet John there. And I met other people through Lester, met his sister Alice. Here's June. He was the fellow that told me where Lester was that Good Friday morning. Here's Lester wearing a Lester shirt. Lester pointing at some signs he did around town. He'd be pushing around his buggy, and often he had these his musings. He'd write on boards or plastic. One of my favorites is cell phones, the modern day earache. And at some point, I don't remember how, but I noticed one of, I think it was in the juvenile video, that the sign from, or one of the signs from the same place where I saw Lester's name, the Magnolia Projects, was in the video. So I started watching a bunch of bounce videos and looked for other Lester signs that happened to be in there. So I found this top row is the signs that I found in the videos, and then the bottom row are my photos that I already had of those buildings that I saw in the videos. Unfortunately, Lester passed away in 2017. It kind of led kind of a hard life. He's a bit of a drinker, drink a lot, unfortunately. But later that year, I was invited to do an art show at Kebab, which is used to be a restaurant in St. Claude. So I had the chance to do my first actual art show. So I chose to do signs and vines. So I focused on Lester signs and cat's claw vines. That's another thing that's kind of obsessed about taking pictures of around town. This is Josh, who works at the library, wearing a t-shirt with the design that had Lester had done for me, the blue po' boy sign. And there's the other half of the art show with the cat's claw vines. More friends wearing Lester inspired t-shirts. And I think a few months before my this art show, I started this program, the design program. In spring that year, I was in, I guess, graphic design 1, and one of the projects was do a fake magazine cover. So I took inspiration from my art show that was coming up to do the signs and vines. So signs and vines, cat's claw. So that's like the first class that I actually used my inspiration of the typography to do a project. And then another project that following summer, there was I forget the name of the class, web technology or something. So our final project was to make a website. We used WordPress. So I made a WordPress site about my art show, Signs and Vines. And this is still, that website's still live. I was invited to do another art show at Hay Cafe the following year. So this time is Civic Pride, question mark. So some of the things I was doing in that show were photographs of Pam's signs that she did for the city. And then later that year, a friend of mine was interested in doing the typeface of Lester's work. So I had Lester to write out the alphabet and numbers for me on a book. I scanned that, gave that to my friend. He turned it into a typeface. So carry regular, that's available. And then later that year, I took typography 2 with Rebecca. And our final project was to make a custom typeface. So my project was to do one based on Pam's lettering. So I had Pam to paint alphabet, the uppercase and lowercase and numbers and some of the symbols for me. So I turned that into a typeface that had 3 styles in it: the regular, which is the just black with the uppercase and lowercase, and then got the shadow style in just uppercase. So that's one way that I've used my digital design program experience to help preserve this unique culture of hand-painted signs around town. And I had Tom also do that for me, had him draw out the alphabet and numbers and symbols. And I finally just finished his typeface just like a week or 2 ago, maybe even last week, I think. So now I have Tom's custom typeface. And these 3 typefaces will all be exhibited at the typeface design exhibition at my gallery next month. So they'll be showing the specimen, like this is a type specimen that shows all the lettering, and then there'll be like physical objects using the typeface. Here's Pam and Tom. It's filming them creating signs. Another class that I took in the spring of 21 was interactive technologies with Sam. And our final project was to make another website. So here's signsandvines.com, which is all about Lester and Tom and Pam, and also Cat's Claw vines. And then last summer, I decided that I wanted to go big in my lino cuts. The previous ones were only like 8 by 10. So I decided to go big, 18 by 24, and I decided to do some corner stores. And these are the 4 corner stores that I wanted to do. And the reason I chose these were that these were 4 stores that had seen signage by Lester and had documented Lester's signs there. So last summer, I spent many hours carving linoleum. Each one took about at least 20 hours to carve, because these are 18 by 24, very detailed. So did lino cuts, printed those at my friend Chris. He has a studio with a much larger press that I could use. So I did this series, and then had an art show at Satsuma showcasing this work, and other work of preserving signage in corner stores around town. And then the spring, so I own a double shotgun on Magazine Street in Lower Garden District. After my tenants moved out, so they left a mess, I was cleaning up, repainting. I decided that I want to do like a pop-up one day, and with all my art that had like on my side of the house. The pop-up went so well that I decided to like do a gallery full-time on that side. So I've turned half of my house, half this double shotgun, into my NOLA Nacular studio and gallery. And I've in May had so here's the inside of one of the rooms. I have a rotating gallery in one of the rooms that rotates every month, different artists or group shows in there. And the first show I had was Fat Kids, who was actually one of the street artists that started documenting years ago. He was going by the name Tard originally, but now he goes by Fat Kids. So the first show that I had was with him. Did a collaboration with him based on the chicken marks. And Miss Pam. So every month I have an opening and a closing for the shows. Miss Pam comes and does custom signs at the parties every first Saturday and last Saturday for the openings and closings for the exhibitions. And she has some work on display permanently that's for sale in the gallery. I'm still in touch with Tom. Here he is working on a self-portrait. Back in December, I was doing a holiday market at Bud Rips, and someone came to the market that night had noticed my work at Satsuma, and she actually owns and has a little bookstore across the street from Satsuma in the Bywater, in this little room next to Frady's corner store. And she asked me if I wanted to do a commission job for her, doing a lino cut of Frady's. So the whole corner store and signage thing all comes together with a commission piece. So I did a piece of Frady's with her bookstore there. And I just finished and printed a couple other corner store prints. So the top one is the Uptown Meat Market, which has a lot of Tom signs there. So so far, I think I printed 14 copies of each. Some will have Tom, or the bottom ones is a store where I got Pam's contact info from, the Rainbow Market. So that I'm gonna have Tom and Pam do like little hand signs with like Sharpie markers or whatever in those white spaces there. So again, combining my art of linoleum cuts, my interest in preserving corner stores and signage, and helping preserve the culture of hand-painted signs, of bringing in Tom and Pam into this project. So I'm gonna have them do their little signs on these prints that I made. So far, I think I've only printed like 14 copies of each. This semester, I'm taking typography 2 again with Nikita. One of our projects was to create a script word mark. So I based mine on Lester's signs around town, and we were to pick a word and make a script word mark. So I used the word vernacular in Lester's style. We drew it out by hand and then turned it into a vector, and that's the finished version there. And so this month at the gallery, or next month at the gallery, there's going to be a typeface design exhibition, and it's called for submissions right now. The bit.ly link right there has more information about it. And anybody that's interested in doing this, if they've already created, maybe drawn out something by hand, but don't know how to turn into a computer typeface, let me know, because I've done that several times now. It's pretty easy. You can do it pretty quickly with I've used a plugin for Illustrator called Font Self. So if anybody's interested in doing that, let me know. Be more than happy to do that. And get more information at NOLANacular.com and my Instagram. And NOLANacular.com is actually this link tree where you can download the typefaces, Lester, Pam, and Tom. Got links to the Signs and Vines websites that I did from Sam's class, from the earlier class, so on. Got a link to the submission form. So yeah, that's it. As a fast, long presentation. Thank you.
Good job.
Whew.
That was
Hope I
awesome,
left,
Anthony.
hope I left enough time for questions.
I mean, yeah, that's actually a good point. Any questions? Can be about anything under the sun. Anthony is a local.
Like signage yourself, or are you just like depicting other people's signage?
I've done a few signs for my gallery myself, but I haven't done for any other people yet. I might try to paint. I have an old white Toyota truck. I might try to paint that with NOLA Nacular on there. So that might be my first trial by fire.
That'd be cool. That'd be really cool.
And I put in the chat my link tree that has the links to the submission form for the typeface. showcase.
That's
And
awesome.
please, if you already created a typeface and don't know how to turn into computer typeface, let me know. I'll be more than happy to do that for you, and then you can be a part of the show next month.
It's a lot easier than it looks.
Yeah, it's simple. It takes like seconds. The key thing is just getting it set up, vectorized in Illustrator first.
Definitely. That's so amazing. Do you know if oh my gosh, what's the guy who used to drive around? I can't believe I've forgotten his name. He's such a character, and he had vegetables.
Mr. Okra.
Mr. Okra. Yes.
Mhm.
Do you know if Lester or Pam or Tom did any of the signage for his
No,
setup?
they didn't. No.
Oh, okay. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't remember if his daughter kept the truck or not.
Hmm.
But I just remember that. Like that culture was part of that too. So
Oh, another thing to mention, like while I was doing all my research back when I was doing my thesis in the preservation program, that's actually how I met Rebecca the first time. I found her work in from SCAD. She'd done some similar stuff with sign painters there in Savannah.
yep.
And then through her, I think I found someone that had created a typeface using signs by one of the sign painters there in Savannah. So it all comes together.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I think
That's-
documenting the culture in New Orleans is gorgeous. For sure. Has to be done.
I want to do a round of applause if everybody can ASL applause in the thing. Just I know like this has been a long time project and there's a lot of passion and love and friendship that goes into what's happening here. And I feel really touched by this whole story. And I think I feel really privileged to be your colleague. And like, this is such good stuff. So all these VIPs made it to this really great AIGA meeting today.
Oh, if you want,
Yeah.
maybe another skill share I could do is using FontSoft, show how easily that's used to make an actual typeface.
That's an excellent idea.
Yeah.
Do that in January. Awesome.
Cool.
All right. Well, to wrap up today's meeting, again, thank you, Anthony. Just so everyone's aware, this was actually part of a keynote he gave in September.
September. Oh, yeah. Actually, this was at the Louisiana Studies Conference up at NSU, at Northwestern State University in Natchitoches.
Yeah. So we got the abridged edition as an encore. So if you would like to know more about the full keynote, I'm sure you can either reach out to Anthony personally, or you can probably check the website for the conference.
Yeah. You got all the slides, but I just like ran through them.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.